Welcome back, everybody. So today we have a special video for you guys. We have a second place finish for the BCF for Toronto. And we have here pretty much the second place finishes. We're going to go over their deck list and they're going to introduce themselves and pretty much explain their experience and how they pretty much felt about the overall tournament. So without further ado, if you guys would like to introduce yourself one by one.
Yeah. I guess I'll start off. Hi, I'm Donut223. I main Abysscraft, and I guess I'll just do a quick plug of having the YouTube channel Donut223-SVE. But yeah, I main Abysscraft. I played Vampires during the regionals tournament.
Nice. Who would like to go next?
Sure, I can go next. So I'm just AJ. Unlike the other two members of my team, I don't really have a YouTube presence, so I got nothing to shout out except their channels. But yeah, I am a Rune main. I've been playing Rune since about like set 1 to 3, and I am the reason that my two teammates have spent way too much money on this game.
That's true.
And then I'll go.
Yep.
Yeah,
Hi, I'm Queen Alley. I am a Havencraft main, been playing Havencraft since about set 4. And I'll plug my channel, Big Brain Misplays, primarily Vanguard and Buddyfight content on there.
Awesome. And I'll have the channels thrown up there when you guys say it in the good old edit. I'm talking to my editing self. But yeah, so how was the event overall? What was the drive to it? What was the overall vibe? Amount of players that showed up? And anyone can answer this. Well, actually, I want all you guys to answer it in your own way.
Fair enough. Well, I was going to say, I guess I'll start just because I was the one who drove. Well, we worked a full day Friday, our normal jobs, and then we drove 4 hours from upstate New York to Toronto. So we got to the hotel at I think it was 12:15-ish. And we pretty much just threw everything on the floor and practically went to bed. But if anyone else has any other things to add to at least the first day, I'll let them kind of throw it in.
Yeah, not just echoing that. I work in a school environment, so this is obviously a very busy time of year for me. So I definitely did feel the drudgery of driving up, even though I wasn't driving. But yeah, no, was very happy to hit that bed in the hotel room.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Would you like to share yours too?
Yeah, just echoing everyone else. Ditto. Just a long night getting to the venue, but worth it in the end.
Yeah.
Awesome. My next question is, how did you all prepare for the event and decide the decks that you were gonna play for the event?
I guess we'll go in just for the sake of not talking over each other. I guess we'll go me, AJ, and then Allie. But it wasn't too hard of a decision, at least for me, because it's Vampires up to now. I guess the Vanguard set came out this same weekend, but it wasn't legal. But Vampires and Dirt Rune were just kind of one of the better decks, along with I know people like Huan as well, but. They're all pretty much in the same wheelhouse of just the best advantage, best functioning decks. So it was just kind of a no-brainer. I was contemplating maybe Ghosts or Nephthys, but it just felt like Vampires overall were just more consistent.
Awesome.
So I'm gonna put you on blast because you left out a very important part of that story, Donut, which was so for the longest time you were kind of seemingly dead set on Nephthys, and then I, to quote SpongeBob, just went, "How many times we have to teach you this lesson, old man?" And I played a few games of Earthright against you, and it felt very one-sided. So I feel like that also kind of went into our decisions there.
Yeah. Well, counterpoint too, I was it was midweek and I was trying to debate on what I wanted to do. And so it was trying to figure out like what would have felt better, and then we met up like at our locals, and it was just like, okay, this like vampires handling like Dirt Rune at least like way better. At least, obviously, it's not like a perfect one for one of like every single deck in the format, but like at least test about against like a strong deck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the debate of, do I want to be very competitive or do I want to have some fun?
Yeah,
So,
Real.
always a conflict.
With that said, there
Alex?
was a Nephthys that cleared into top 8, so maybe I was wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't want to cut you off, Donut, but I can go next if you're all wrapped up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Pretty much that was it. Actually, the only thing I just wanted to mention was I just memed to AJ afterwards. I was like, I'm telling you, if I went Nephthys, we would have came in first. But I was just memeing at that point.
Yeah. So for me, like I said, am a Rune main, but for some reason, whenever D-Shift Kuon is in the format, it is the one form of Rune that just hates me. I have really bad RNG with it. I'm always like a bit too slow to do the combo. So I know a lot of people with the new chess cards this past set were going back to that deck because it is a fan favorite, but meanwhile, I was kind of like, I've been playing Dirt Rune since set 3. I've really enjoyed seeing the deck evolve to the powerhouse that it is right now. I was debating bringing an variant of Onion, just because I really like that deck, and I think it's very unexpected and kind of gets in really fast and quick. But once I saw, prior to the event, that they were implementing the restriction of Gingerbread House, I wanted to get at least one showing with the deck in a competitive environment.
Pretty viable reason right there. So I agree.
Also, I can't be mad that we lost to the team called Justice for Gingerbread House. Like, just
Real.
a good team name.
If I had to lose to any team, it had to be them.
Yeah.
And what was the team name for you guys?
It was Cook Billion.
Many layers there.
So it's kind of a layer of like my name along with, I think was in Vanguard, AJ and Allie, there's a team called like Cook Million.
Yeah, so in the latest iteration, Divines, the characters work at this restaurant called Cook Million, and that's where all like the after episode card reveals are. So I was like, oh well, your name is Bill Cook.
Yeah.
Cook Million, Cook Billion.
Yeah.
So many layers, clearly.
Yeah, that's creative. I like it.
Yep. So that was kind of the team name. I don't know if you ever noticed, Chris, whenever I do the deck submittals, I'll have that as the name for the team.
No, I haven't actually.
I've done it more recently, like probably
now,
within the last like month or so. It hasn't been like ever since the beginning, but yeah.
Well, now I'm gonna look for it now. So you gotta keep doing it.
Fair. And then Allie, I don't know if you want to. I know we've been kind of chit chatting. Didn't know if you want to chime in with your Haven Amulet deck.
Oh, sure, yeah. It was a pretty easy decision for me. As long as I've played the game, I've been a borderline control Haven one trick. I try out other things, but always come back to the deck. I used to, well, the reason I started playing the deck was Heavenly Aegis was a very cool card for me. As we've gotten more and more berry or non-targeting removal effects, I felt less safe about making that my win condition. So Amulet's Haven seemed like the natural evolution of, I think, a lot of control, not a lot of followers on my side, and then just finishing the game with a lot of burst damage that's hard to interact with.
Okay, awesome. And you said something about one-tricking pretty much Haven. I feel like a lot of players kind of jump back and forth to different decks, and they don't top. And I think one-tricking a deck or an archetype like that gives you a great advantage, even if the deck is kind of out of meta or like right there below top tier. So, great choice.
Yeah, a lot of times.
Yeah, definitely helps. Oh, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I was gonna say a lot of times I feel like there's little like tricks that if you're just like a casual, I hate to say casual, not casual in like a casual versus pro, but like if you just kind of pick up one deck, you don't kind of realize there's a few more like intricate combos compared to like if you kind of like, maining the whole suite of cards, So, no, I certainly you kind of see where you're coming from, Chris, with that.
Oh yeah.
I also feel like I kind of saw that play out firsthand in one of your games, Ali, when you were against the Kuon opponent, and I believe it was round, what was it, 4 or 5, where they triple Kuon'd you. They definitely feel like with how they were playing that deck, they probably picked it up again this format. So versus you, who kind of like knew the lines, knew the whatever, they overcommitted without being able to close out the game. So I definitely do feel like the sticking with the deck makes you a lot more comfortable in like a competitive environment.
Definitely. I think it also helps with the top cut jitters you start to get. When you know your deck inside and out, you're unlikely to misplay because you're nervous or anything like that.
Yeah.
Also.
Well,
Well-
I was just going to throw in one
Oh yeah,
one
go
tiny
for it,
detail.
go for it.
Was there was a lot of black and white merchant decks, which seemed to be in the middle. So AJ took like the brunt of them, but I took, I was facing one matchup, and so there's like one little detail as far as like things with Realmia, where she can like just storm off on turn 3 if you don't deal with turn like 1 or 2 Celia and her Evo. And just like chunk for a bunch of damage. So like there was a Swordcraft guy I was talking, the Swordcraft opponent I was speaking to, he was mentioning that like saving a Whispers for a Dream for a Realmy on turn 3, like if something like that happens, it's just killer for like Swordcraft. So there's like little like finer details, when you start to kind of get into the nitty gritty of different classes.
Okay, nice. Well, before we get into the first deck profile, does anyone else have any last minute things to say?
Yeah, I guess just about the tournament experience. Really liked the venue, liked the vibes, especially big shout out to the judging staff.
Yeah.
I feel like, at least for me personally, this is only the second event that I've had a really high placed, respectable finish. So going through deck check, I've not done that a lot, and I feel like it felt as low stress as it could be, but while still doing their jobs.
Yeah, I feel like it was like firm but fair kind of
Definitely.
vibe, and yeah, the judges were good. There were like some sleeving snafus like from people, but like it wasn't anything like intentional, and ultimately everything was like fine after the deck check. But just sleeves get kind of tattered and damaged just through playing them and stuff, so people just either had to like swap out sleeves or whatnot. But yeah, otherwise it was totally fine.
I hear the horror stories of Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think Magic and Pokemon sometimes where people's sleeves is messed up and stuff like that, and they get like a game loss or
Like
even worse.
immediately, yeah.
Yeah. So it's good that everyone was on the same page of not going to the extreme.
They were looking like pretty good too. Like there were a few things they were mentioning that were like, oh, we've played with these cards tons of times. We literally didn't even notice like there's little nicks or something, So they were looking pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, Donut, would you like to start off with the first deck profile, going over just the overall deck, and at the end, what you would change about it for the next event you're gonna go to if you do one this for the rest of the year?
Yeah. So I guess for anyone watching on my channel, I just want to mention that AJ and Allie's, I'll just kind of like probably show in front in case they can't like screen share it, but I was just going to kind of pop it up on my desktop here. So normally I don't have Valneric as the leader, but considering she's just kind of like the most sought after leader at the moment, I'm just going to make her the leader. But otherwise, 2 Crimson Rose Queen. First off, this deck is like nothing like super out of the ordinary for vampires, but 2 Crimson Rose Queen, 2 Dublame Duke and Dame, 3 Raven Eventide Vampires, 3 Vanya Vampire Princess, 3 Gifford Bloodkin, 2 Last Daylights, 3 Precious Bloodfangs, 2 Whispers of a Dream, 2 Kudlak, 3 Old Blood King, 3 Unleash the Nightmares, 3 Raven Noontide Vampire, 3 Summon Bloodkin, 3 Vampiric Fortress, and 3 Vanya Nightshade Vampire, and 2 to blame for Evo. 3 copies of the Kind Queen and Blood Queen Vanyas. They're the double-sided cards. 3 copies of Old Blood King and 2 Crimson Rose Queen. This is like it's like ever so slightly different than I feel like everyone else runs it. But it's nothing like super crazy. The only like difference that most people do is they'll just run 3 Last Daylights, 1 Whispers of a Dream, and maybe like 2 Vampire Fortress and have like 2 Whispers of a Dream. It seems like people really like 3 Last Daylights, and I've tried running 3, and I always just feel like I see all 3 at the same time. And I don't mind seeing 2, but when I start to see 3, it's like, okay, this is starting to be a little too crazy. And I also noticed when I only ran 2 Vampire Fortresses, it felt like I didn't have enough consistency, and like my plays would be kind of slower without 3. So I kind of bumped down 1 of the Last Daylights just to increase Vampiric Fortress. Which people might think, well, okay, that's 1 less 2 cost for Crimson Rose Queen. But with Vampire Fortress, you can also just grab a 2 cost card, from the top 3. So it's not like that big of a deal. But otherwise, I mean, the deck is pretty standard, and nothing super out of the ordinary. If anything, I probably have the least to say about it, unless you guys have any questions or anything.
Seems just standard bats.
Yeah. I've seen some people say they don't like Crimson Rose Queen, but one thing I noticed with the deck, I guess I'll just mention this, but one thing I just noticed with the deck is prior to Crimson Rose Queen, you kind of have to play the cards that are not 2 costs and try to hold on to the 2 costs and say, if I am playing this 2 costs, and assuming I have like a Crimson Rose Queen in hand, it's like, do I really have to play this 2 costs, or can I just wait till Crimson Rose Queen? So I know some people don't play her just because they don't feel like she works well. I haven't had an issue with her, but everyone's kind of point of view on decks is a little different. So,
okay. And if you remember your matchups, what were they?
Oh, that was fun. So funny enough, I actually did take notes, so I actually remember pretty well. Round 1, we were so good, we literally got the bye. There were 23 teams, 69 players total, and we were the last position team, and it's odd, so we just got the bye.
Okay, free wins are always welcome.
Right, like no complaints there. Round 2, I played against Float Haven, / I guess it's also sometimes called Karula Haven, where they kind of hold on to play points on their turn to, play quicks against you during your turn. It was pretty easy. The Float Haven is just like doesn't have a lot of ways to just consistently control bats, except for Themis' Decree, which just every Haven deck has. So outside of Themis, you can kind of just control the board pretty well with them. That being said, though, we still got a double loss that round, unfortunately. But that was the in the top in the pre-cut, that was our only loss, though. So round 3, I played a Vampire Mirror match. I lost the die roll, so he wanted to go first, and I went second, and Vampires always want to go first. So, just bad luck at the draw there. Round 4, I played against a Kuan deck. It seemed like he had a rough hand, and so he couldn't really, both get cards in the cemetery and control my board. So he just I basically aggroed him out. He just couldn't keep up with my board and just keep clearing. But we won that round. Round 5, I was in position A, and so it must have been the Kuan seat, because it seemed like Black and White Sword was the B seat, the middle seat, and it seemed like position A was the Kuan, because round 5 was also Kuan. Again, just aggroed him out. The turn I beat him, he showed his hand afterwards, but the turn I beat him, if I didn't beat him that turn, he would have double D-shifted me. So I had to finish him that turn. So yeah, after the 5th round, we went 4-1, total. Top 8 was, the first round was Black and White Sword. He got me down pretty close. He got me down to 7. So I was kind of nervous about Realmia just coming out of nowhere and storming for 7. And he also had a Leonidas' Resolve on the field. But shortly after he got Leonidas' Resolve on the field, he basically had 1, maybe 2 cards in hand. So he was just running out of steam. And then and he made like a decent board, but then I just like Crimson Rose Queened and just dealt 2 to the board, heal 2, dealt 2 to the board, heal 2, and just started like from 7, I shot back up to 19. So, yeah, he just ran out of steam. So I won that one. And then round 2 in the top 8 was against Amulet. And I went first, but I lost. But for what it's worth, I know playing against Allie a lot. Amulet Haven is tough for bats because with 3 Themis' Decree, it's just like I can't keep a board. Like once I have a good board, it's just like be gone, with Themis' Decree. So that's a tough one. And he ultimately beat me on that one. And then round 3, I played another Kuan, and I lost that one. He actually, the round 3 opponent of top 8 was actually the same opponent I played in round 5 of the pre-cut. So it was basically a rematch for us from top 5 to get first place. So,
Nice.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your profile, and we'll move over to AJ.
Yeah. Oh, and
All right.
I'm gonna just take. There we go. Just take off my deck list. Okay, go ahead.
Perfect. All right, so I am sharing my screen now. Let me just pull it up for myself.
Yep.
So yeah, I was playing Earthright Rune. Because it's Earthright Rune, you gotta go with the Erasmus leader. The OG Earthright boss. I wish he was remotely playable. Sadly, he's not, but he's with us in spirit. A card that is still hyper playable from that era, though, is the Ancient Alchemist. So I really love this card. It's one of the main things that when I was first trying out Earthright really drew me to it. I think that with how counter timings are structured in this game, having just uninteractable effect damage off of the evolve, which I'll show a bit later, is really important for just closing out like grind games or games where you lose tempo, but you've chipped away at them throughout it. So I really liked the Ancient Alchemist at 3. Same thing with Caradwyn. She's kind of a jack of all trades, as people know. If you've played a lot of Earthright matchups, the instant poison to deal with a standing 4 health threat, but also get some chip damage in, and the eternal potion to bring back some of your threats, like the Ancient Alchemist. Just really strong card on base and Evo. Riley, Hydro Shaman. If I was not playing too many card games, I would have this in U. This card is so amazing. Obviously, on play, if you have to play it, you choose one of the 3 effects and either control the board, create a threat, or gain advantage. But obviously, paying 6 to bring her back and do the whole package is really strong and can be really helpful for inching you closer with a big chunk of life exchange. The Mirror of Truths, I really did enjoy. Sometimes they did feel a little bit clunky being one of the more expensive amulets. Plus, I found oftentimes, as I'll get to later when I discuss Faust, it can be hard to commit to this as your 3 out of 4 play points worth of Faust. So this was mostly just a get a Caradwyn or get an Ancient Alchemist back for equivalent cost. So just copies 4 of both of them. The one Price of Magic was really, really good to have in my back pocket at all times. I'll talk about this more when I talk about my matchups, but I did play a Ghost opponent in top 8, and it didn't come up that match, but in testing with Donut, I have encountered, if you're able to get a little chip damage on the evolved Masquerade Ghost, just banishing it so the last words don't trigger and they can't bring out Sincere is very key, as well as just a lot of just scary threats that have last words. If you can get them down to 4 health, this just trivializes the problem.
I cry every time.
Then here, Beast-Faced Mage. This card was MVP of the entire weekend. If you see this card on 2 with either of your 2-cost Earth Sigils that I'll cover later on, especially in a tempo matchup, you're probably winning that game. Just the ability to have a Goblin stats, tap this to deal with a standing 2 health threat and when they remove it, you get a sediment fueling the rest of your cards. This card is the full package for what the deck wants to do. Then a last minute addition was the Angelic Barrage. So I did expect a lot of bats going into this event, so I wanted some coverage for that. I was originally not sure how many copies I wanted of this, but when I discussed Medusa later, just the ability to pull this out meant that I didn't ever feel like I needed multiple copies. A card that kind of underperformed or just didn't really have the most opportunities to use was the Magical Augmentation. It's fine as just a non-quick angelic snipe with potential upside to be a surefire bullet that draws you a card, but the Earthright 2 is hefty, and I find that I'm usually using other removals like the instant poisons, the price of magics, so this didn't really get a time to shine. And then, of course, In the Arms of an Angel, Gingerbread House, the last event that I can run it at 3. This card, call me a rune apologist, but I do just really like this card in almost any rune list. The ability to just pay 1, heal 3 to get out of range of a lot of burst in this game is really helpful, more so with the ability to just pull it out on command with Faust. So really enjoy having that, but it really didn't come up that often throughout the weekend. Teachings of Creation, serviceable amulet, the ability just to gain a resource of stack while also deck thinning. Simple, card advantage is good. Witch's Cauldron, love this card, just the ability to dig deeper into your deck and grab whatever Earthright piece you're going to need. In past versions of Earthright, I felt we haven't had a high enough ratio of good main deck Earthright effects. For example, I used to be on Magiblade Wielder in earlier builds, but the fact that her Earthright is only on Evolve means you can't grab her, but I feel like now, with there being such a high density of good Earthright effects in the deck, this can really toolbox you into most things that you need. Speaking of toolbox, the handyman himself, Faust Truthseeker, the ability to grab 2 Earth Sigils with a combined cost of 4 from deck is just so insane for top end. Gets you any of the amulets I've discussed earlier, or the ones I'm going to discuss a little later on, and you can really custom tailor it to the situation you're in. If you're in a situation where you're low on resources, you can grab the Witch's Cauldron or the Teachings of Creation. If you're in a situation where you've been really aggroed out in the early game but starting to stabilize, you can grab the Gingerbread House. Banish on command with Price of Magic. So really, this card, surprising no one who's been playing the game the last 2-3 sets, this card is crazy, and I'm just glad that he was not the target of restriction if something did have to get restricted. Moving on to more of the low end, we have Rabbit Mage at 3. Really also enjoy this card. The ability just to play a 2-1 as a okay statted 2-cost threat that then gets you a resource with the sediment. And then I'll quickly go down to the evolve. Then on evolve, copying the effect of Witch's Cauldron, one of the best effects in your deck. That redundancy is very helpful when you're trying to gather your late game finishing pieces like Faust or Caradwyn. A piece I added relatively recently was bumping up Red Hot Ritual from, I believe it was either 1 or 2 before, up to 3. This card, for reasons like the Goblin I discussed earlier, is just such a key tempo piece into aggro decks this format. The ability to develop a sigil for later Earthright spending while also just clearing pretty much any turn 1 or 2 threat is invaluable. And next up, as my last Earth Sigil in the deck, the bane of my wallet, as you see with that hot stamp there. Getting all 3 of these before the event was definitely stressful, but I'm glad I did. This card, combined with Beast-Faced Mage, is why I did as well as I did. the ability to play Beast Faced on 1 as a competitively statted card, and then on 2, this card does everything. Getting a effectively 3-cost ward body with the Guard Form Golem is developing your board. The discard effect can sometimes be a detriment, except when you have the God open and can pitch Riley. Because in that case, you are making it so your Riley is not open to banish effects in classes that have access to those, is really key. And then also setting up a threat for future turns in the Strike Form Golem that it creates. All of those effects are amazing. So briefly advancing to part of my matchups, in all of the 80 million sword games I played over the weekend, whenever I would go beast faced on 1, they'd play Celia or some array of early game threats. Being able to on 2 go summoning drills, advance my board state, tap beast face, deal with your board state, created a tempo swing that pretty much none of my opponents could recover from.
Oh yeah, that does make
And
it hard for to call them. So yeah, then it'd be another ward they have to deal with.
Exactly, yeah, and just like creating a 3/3 on 2 after developing a 2/2 on 1, while removing a 2/2 threat from the opponent, like that is just insane amounts of tempo. And I was very fortunate to see it in the match just where it counted.
Mm.
And then lastly, a card that I was very late to the party on was Sweet Tooth Medusa. So as long as I've been playing Earthright, I really have kind of tunnel visioned in on just the Earthright and stack support cards themselves. I feel like there's just such a wide variety of cards in that pool that there's a temptation just to like really bring out the power of all of those cards. But in playing Sweet Tooth Medusa this weekend, this was 100% a correct addition at 2. Just the ability to search for some of the lower cost cards, such as Angelic Barrage at 1, Augmentation at 1, or even most of your Earth Sigils that I've covered so far in this deck profile, is really just helpful to ensure that you get a Merlin-like effect for a little bit more play points. And then also the ability to generate serpents when you remove threats from the opponent's board is key. Not only is the 0/1 Bane scary if they do leave a threat open to attack, but more importantly, and I'll just segue right into my Evo deck here, the ability in the evolved form to, at quick effect speed, bury 2 serpents to reduce the cost of your next card by 2 came up in a very key moment during the tournament. So, in one of my sword matchups, when a sword opponent had developed several token units with 1 health, and then was swinging into this with a 5 health follower, I was able to, in my first quick timing, bury the 2 serpents, and then in my second quick timing, play the Angelic Barrage I had searched with Medusa, which effectively simplified the board state. Their attack suddenly became a trade, which allowed me to leave them with just 1 or 2 followers that I was very easily able to pick off. Moving on, I've talked about Caradwyn a decent amount, but yes, just the ability to, as I mentioned, get that Eternal Potion, and even more importantly, make the first potion or poison that you're playing each turn be free is so important. The ability to, on turn 4, sack a Earth Sigil, gain a really powerful removal tool in the poison, and then evolve, use the poison that same turn to clear a standing threat, trade this into a rested threat, keeps with the theme of the deck in just out-tempoing any early threats from the opponent. Next up, as I've mentioned, the backbone of the late game of this deck, Ancient Alchemist. Making your Golem followers cost 1 less is insane to this day, even 10, 11 sets later. Especially when you consider that you are already generating golems in your EX from the summoning drills. In the late game, that really raises the ceiling of just how much damage output you can have with this card. Plus, something I did throughout the tournament was using the potion created from the Caradwyn to bring this back and re-evolve into the evolved form to then, off of only seeing one, maybe two copies of Alchemist, cheat it out for one less point, pay the hefty evolve cost of 3, and then have even more play points available to burn my opponents out. And then lastly, I've covered him, so I won't go into too much detail, but Rabbit Mage, best boy, we love getting our resources here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
so that was it. And then would you like me to also talk about matchups?
Yep.
Awesome. So, like we've been mentioning, pretty much I don't know what like group hive mind resulted in this, but every team putting sword in their position 2 was pretty much my entire tournament with one or two exceptions. So I believe as Donut mentioned, our first round was a bye, and then in round 2, I was against, I believe it was a sword opponent. I had mulliganed because I had a slightly higher cost hand, and upon seeing it was sword, I knew I had to go for more early drops. Sadly, I got a hand that had a bunch of 3 drops, Caradwin, Alchemist, and no sigils. So by the time I started fighting for the board, they had just gained too much advantage, and in terms of board presence, and they just cleared me out before I could stabilize. That was thankfully my only loss, though. Then the following matchups were largely just variations of the same story. Seeing Goblin, or excuse me, not Goblin, Beast-Faced Mage. I call him Goblin because he's just Goblin on steroids. Seeing Beast-Faced Mage in the first 2 or 3 turns, backed up by Sigils to burn, just kept all of the Celios off the board and allowed me to advance to the mid and late game without having my life total threatened. So that was the story for the 3rd round. The 4th round, very much the same thing. And then the final round of Swiss was against the team we played in finals. And I really do feel sorry for my opponent. Great player, really nice person as well. They had gotten greedy in their mulligan and had kept some cards that would benefit them in the later game. But I happened to see the god draw of Beast Faced on 1, Summoning Drills on 2, a later Summoning Drills on either turn 3 or 4. And by that point, I had also moved up the strike form in a previous turn. So I had just so much attack presence on board that I wound up just keeping them off board with my removal tools and closing out that game on turn 6, which I never thought I would be out aggroing Sword and beating them that early, but stranger things have happened. Moving on to Top Cut, the first round was against the Ghost player that I mentioned. Once again, really skillful player, really just great opponent. Unfortunately, during our match, there was a issue that we had to get a ruling on, which ate up a decent amount of time. So when they were playing Ghost, they had been able to get Sincere Masquerade Ghost onto the board. They attempted to bury it with the effect of Arcus, and we were just unsure as to whether the ghost coming in would gain the buff off of the Masquerade Ghost that would be moved up by Sincere. It actually took, I want to say, 6 judges by the end of it to reach a consensus on how that was ruled. So our game did not wind up concluding because in that time I had looked over and seen that both of my teammates had already won that round. So upon seeing that, based on the life totals on their phones, I realized it just really was not. We both agreed that it was just not a game worth continuing, especially because we had held up the entirety of top 8, unfortunately, due to that ruling dispute. So we did try to play it out a little bit just to kind of like see theoretically what would happen. But the fact that I had pulled out a Angelic Barrage with a Medusa meant that the Phantom Howl they were saving to try and close me out just was not going to connect. So even if we had finished the game, it did seem like I was going to be in a decisively winning position.
Oh, that's as a Abyss main, that is so depressing hearing like a Phantom Howl just get nullified by a Angelic Barrage.
Yeah,
Just hurts your heart.
yep. And like he had been doing like everything that deck wanted to do as well. Like he had Sincere Soul on either turn 4 or turn 5. He was aggressing me. I believe I was down to like either 8 or 6 points before our ruling dispute happened.
Yeah.
And then that Phantom Howl, if it resolved, was going to close out the game. But just sadly, the ability to, as I've talked up enough by this point, Medusa's ability to just grab me a 1-cost removal and set it up with the Serpents was what won me that game if that game had continued. Honestly, in hindsight, I think I should have probably played 3 Medusa, but I was making adjustments on my deck until the last minute, so I only brought 2 Medusas with me, but thankfully wound up not mattering. Moving on to top 4. In top 4, I played against the only Kuan opponent I played all day. So this brings up another interesting detail looking back on my matchups. Even in dice rolls that I lost, I believe a lot of my sword opponents thought I was on Kuan when they just saw the Runecraft leader. So they all opted to go second, which I feel like is just not correct in the matchup, which obviously they had no way of knowing. But the ability for me to go first and either develop the Beast-Faced Mage or one of my very low-tempo 1-cost sigils without staring down a 2-2 or just other early game threats is just really appreciated. So I imagine in the Kuan matchup, they were probably playing correct, and given the density of Kuan we saw all weekend, that was a reasonable line of logic, but sadly it just did not pay off. As for the Kuan matchup itself, he did attempt to kind of control me down, but the ability to just draw 2 cards off of Riley, keep checking top 4 with both Rabbit Mage and Cauldron, as well as just gaining on-demand resources with Faust, just meant that I was always playing the aggressor in that matchup, to the point where he had an opportunity to play Merlin. And to my understanding with that deck, you want to, when you have a commanding presence, you want to use Merlin to grab the D-shift and get your combo developed quicker. But he just never had a opportunity to do that. His Merlin was grabbing a checkmate because otherwise he was dead in 2 or 3 turns. So very much managed to close that game out on, I want to say, turn 8. I was scared that he had just naturally drawn the combo, but once again, he just never was given that window of breathing room to dig to the extent needed. I was always in his face with my threats on board. Moving into finals, fun story. I did not realize that both of my teammates had lost in the finals. So even though our game did not matter, as Donut said, it was a matchup against the last team we played in Swiss. It was really cool that my sword opponent was able to play a lot more this game. I did not see Beast-Faced Mage until way too late, so throughout a lot of the early game, my opponent did have threats that I was always 1 or 2 moves behind removing. So I did get pretty low, but in the final stages of the game, I had been kind of starved out of my stack counters for my abilities. I had managed to set up an Ancient Alchemist and drop. Going into turn 9 or so, I want to say, I was looking at my hand. I just had a Summoning Drills. I had some Golems in the back row from previous Summoning Drill activations. And I was like, okay, I have the Eternal Potion remaining from Caradwyn. I do have a Summoning Drills in hand, but playing that for 2 makes it so I don't have the play points to play enough golem followers and evolve the alchemist I want to bring back. So as my opponent was ending their turn with a very scary board, they had Leod, they had the 3-cost merchant sword follower, whose name I'm blanking on at the moment, the White Princess, and I believe even a Ralmia. So they were really making a end game push. And I was
And
hanging on with very.
just to interject real quick too, there was that Aether of the Warrior Wing on the field, which buffed them all up. I think was it like +2/+2 or something. So it was terrifying.
Yeah, I think instead of the round me, I think it was the Aether. So thank you for correcting me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just very strong board. So I was down to, like I said, very few resources. I'm like, okay, if I am going to win this, I need to top deck a 1-cost amulet exactly here. And thankfully, I just had not seen that many. I'd seen like 2 Witch's Cauldron, and that was it. So going into the final turn of the tournament, my face lit up when I saw Teachings of Creation off the top. It allowed me to pay the 1 for that, bring the alchemist back with the potion, evolve the alchemist for 3, and then my opponent was down to, I want to say, exactly 9.
So
It
was 7.
Or 7, yes.
He needed to do it 3 times, but yeah, he was at 7. Yep.
Yeah. So just the ability to do all of that from effectively just drawing a 1-cost card really was kind of like assembling the 5 pieces of Exodia.
Yep. Nice. Yeah, it's very extensive, and yeah, that seemed like it was a hard time. Not really a hard time for you, but a hard time for the sword players, especially.
Yeah,
definitely. I will say, after that game concluded, I was so relieved. I thought, because I had kind of overheard from Allie's game that she had lost, but I must have zoned out for part of Bill's match. Focused on my plays because I was under the assumption that he had won his game.
Yeah.
So I thought I was the deciding factor, which is why I was so like locked in and like nerve racked going in to that mid stages of that game. So upon winning, I was like, "Yeah, we did it!" And then I look over and it's like, "Oh, wait, I'm the only one who did it."
To
So
AJ's
locked in, you lost surroundings.
Yeah, to AJ's credit. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Say that again, Chris.
Oh no, I was saying he was so locked in that he lost the sense of his surrounding.
Yeah,
definitely.
And to AJ's credit, my life when I died was at 25, but he triple like summoned Kuon and D-shifted, and it was just like an insane amount of damage. I think like total, if it all went through, it would have been like 27. And I was at 25 life, so it was just like it's just from 25 to 0. So like I don't blame AJ for thinking I would have won because like my opponent was like sub 10 life, like more teetering on the edge than me, but yeah.
Yeah, like I want to say I looked over at your board state and I saw, okay, Bill's at 25, his opponent's at 10, he probably has us in the bag, which means I need to lock in, and then by the next chance I had a second to collect myself and look over, you guys were packed up. So I had thought the game just did that, but it was literally the age-old, like, samurai, a million cuts, put the sword in the sheath, you're already dead kind of maneuver.
Yeah.
Very sad. But hey, still a good time. Second's very respectable. So
Definitely. Allie, are you good to swap off to sharing your screen?
Sure thing.
All right, I'll get mine off, and you go ahead. Take it away.
Okay, so this is my Amulet Haven craft deck. Of course, gotta have the cheese for the leader. Going through the deck, let's start off with the 1-drops and just go in order. We got 3 copies of Dark Offering. Very important card to heal 3, cycle through, and most importantly, clear off the amulets that have last words but don't get rid of themselves. You really rely on these effects, and Dark Offering makes the deck flow so much easier. 2 Candelabra of Prayers. Once per turn, when you play an amulet, give your leader 1 defense. Very important for survivability, especially in my Sanguine Aggro Abyss matchup. This was basically the only reason I won, was getting 2 of these set up very early. 3 copies of Meowscar's Ambush. We just play this for the fanfare, checking the top 3 to grab a Havencraft follower. Very important to grab your Syrian Hides or your Alexials, getting to your win conditions. Then going to the 2-cost cards, we have 3 copies of Vengeful Radiance. Unfortunately, did not get 3 hot stamps in time for the event. This is basically your saving grace against any deck that wants to play early aggression in a relatively greedy late game deck. Just the flexibility to be able to clear 2 small followers or 1 big follower. This card is indispensable, and I believe it will be for a long time. We have 3 copies of Moria Encomium. Also a very cracked card that we got recently. Fanfare, you draw a card. It does not get rid of itself, but when you get rid of it, its last words will destroy a follower with 3 defense or less. So it's another pseudo removal spell, but on a delayed trigger. Then we have 2 copies of Globe of the Starways. Just our way to search for our amulets, toolbox a little bit, and swarm the board with amulets because it itself is one. And in a pinch, you can use its second effect to draw a card and heal 1.
Shout out
Moving
the Dark
down.
Riz man himself.
Yep, best start. Skip 0 cost, so we have 1 Hair of Illusions. This is our only 0 cost card. Mainly played as a way to curve out into effects like Eidolon of Madness or a fully charged Godsworn Alexial for 0 play points. It's just nice to be able to play an amulet for free. In rare situations, you'll use its effect to tap a follower if you want to trade, and in less rare situations, it's an extra board clear for 10 play points, but if you're into your Zerganea advanced follower, then you really don't care about spending your whole turn clearing a board. Going back to the 2 costs, we have some followers. We have 2 copies of Segment. This is another way of getting rid of amulets, and for doing so and tapping her, you get 4 damage to a follower, 1 damage to its later. Another way of clearing boards early. We have the 1 copy of Phantom Blade Wielder, plus 1 copy of its evolved form. This is just if you see it, it's a good way of clearing early boards, primarily against bats. And if it sticks around and you're able to float the play points, it can clear something every turn for free. So that's always nice. We got 2 copies of Eidolon of Madness. Fanfare, it evolves for free if you have 3 amulets already before playing him. And then on evolve, banishes a follower. And last words, burns the enemy leader for 3. A very important card to clear large bodies and get the opponent's life total down. Then we have 2 copies of Boost Kicker. This was my flex spot between this or Angelic Barrage. I went with Boost Kicker because it has the flexibility of being able to clear any size board up to the number of play points you can pay for its fanfare. But you can always just pay 2 and then pay an extra 1 to deal 1 damage in the bat matchup. So this was good, but I definitely think, as I'll get into later, there is a world where we run both Boost Kicker and Angelic Barrage, because, spoiler alert, we really struggle with the bat matchup.
No, Allie, please don't. I beg of you.
Going on into our 3 drops, we have 2 copies of Psychic Maiden, Fanfare, banish a follower with 4 defense or less, and then you can get rid of it for 5 to banish any enemy follower. This card is very good to just develop in the early game, clear a mid-size body, and we rarely use its last effect, but in our this matchup, we ended up playing both Psychic Maidens and paying the 5 for both of them to banish a total of 4 followers. That let us delay the Necro charge and get rid of some important recursion targets, and I think that really swung the game in our favor. Then we have just the 1 copy of White Wing Temple. Nice if you see it, and it's searchable with Globe of the Starways. It's just a way of healing a little bit every turn, and eventually it'll get you a Serenade and Hind for free, which is a huge tempo swing when you can play him out while developing other cards. Which brings us to the Serenade and Hind. Low-key the MVP of the deck. On Fanfare for 4 play points, you check the top 5 cards, grab an amulet, and then it evolves into a follower that can either have ward and heal your leader for 4 by bearing an amulet, which is important for proccing your last wards, or burning either an enemy follower or leader for 4 damage and rushing in with Bane. Very good for pressuring life totals early or just clearing 2 for 1. And in 5 drops, we have, or actually we have one more 4 drop. This is a 1 of Tenko's Shrine. It just has an effect every turn. If you gain a defense, you can tap it to burn either a follower or an enemy leader to damage. So it's a good, if you're able to establish it, it's a good way of clearing small threats for free every turn, or slowly whittling down the opponent's life total. That used to be more important when this deck had a damage cap, but with Zerganea, which we get into next, we don't really have that anymore, so this is one of the cards that I would cut. Getting into Zerganea though, Fanfare, draw a card if you have no followers, which is super free in this deck because you're mainly going to have a board of amulets, and you destroy an enemy follower. And then if your leader is 10 defense or less, you heal for 5, which is super free. And from the cemetery, you banish it for 10 to set up Ogre's World in your advanced EX area. And then this is just a free board clear for 4 and 4 to the face every end phase. Or once your opponent is at 10 or less, you just play it for 10 and burn them for 10. Finish the game. Other 5 drops, we have 3 copies of Nemesis Decree. Probably the only reason why you can really play this deck viably is once you set up your amulets, if you can just play Nemesis Decree, clear your opponent's board, keep all your important cards, and do that every turn, like Donut mentioned earlier, it's pretty backbreaking.
Yeah. Can't confirm.
Key part being, as we might get into later, you have to see your copies of Nemesis Decree and not send them to the bottom with your top 5 search effects.
Oof.
Last card in our 5 cost is Heavenly Knight. It's a Storm Ward that gets 2 attack points and heals your leader for 2. On Fanfare, if you have 2 amulets, which is very easy to fulfill in this deck. This is here mostly as a form of surprise burst damage to the opponent, but it can also be a very strong tempo play if you play it on 5 into a relatively empty board, as it does heal you and represent the 5/7 ward while pressuring their life, so good card when the deck had a damage cap, but also one of the greedier picks that I would probably not run again. And then for the Evos, we have, well, first we have to go to the main deck. We have Godsworn Alexiel, 7 drop that heals you for 2x the number of amulets you have, so you almost always want to have this at 8. And then Fanfare, it'll deal damage to a follower and their leader for 2x the number of amulets. So this is how you swing the game around in your favor by healing for 8, dealing 8 damage to their leader, dealing 8 damage to a follower, and then being able to rush into another follower and keep a body hopefully with ward. So if you have multiples of these set up back to back, you're basically winning almost any matchup. Then finishing off the Eva deck, 3 Serenade Light Hinds / Dark Hinds, 1 Zerganea, 2 Eidolons, and 1 Phantom Blade Wielder to match the Phantom Blade Wielder in the main deck. Changes I'd likely make is cutting Tenko's Shrine and Heavenly Knight. Like I mentioned, the deck now has access to potentially infinite damage with Ogre's World, as you have the ability to turtle out in the late game with your board clears and heal effects. So we don't really need the extra damage, and these cards are awkward if you're not set up to play them in certain matchups. I would probably cut those for the Angelic Barrages, just to help in the vampire matchup. Which, going into my matchups, round 1 was mine, like everyone's mentioned. Round 2 was against Vampire. This was our double loss, which was my double loss. That was the tiebreaker. What happened there? It was a pretty grindy game. My opponent had gone through basically all of their burst damage, all 3 6/6 Stormers. And I had set up Oh Great World in my EX area, so we both kind of acknowledged, hey, this is kind of checkmate, you're never building a board again. But unfortunately, time was called and we both took the loss. So that would have been my only victory against Vampire, unfortunately. Going into the next round, though, we've alluded to this before, but it was the D-Shift opponent. I could see that they were on some sort of spell chain strategy, but I really was not aware of D-Shift's presence in the meta before this event. So my assumption was the deck was Chimera, which is the 7-drop that can spell chain 30, burn your opponent for 30 damage. So on that thought process, I prioritized setting up my amulets and my life total to, I believe I got to 34. And then it came to their big combo turn. They played out triple Kuon and the D shift and hit me for 19, I believe. I think they also misplayed and forgot to tap their Kuon to give one of their Shikigami Storm. But regardless, they were never killing me, and by that point, they were low on deck, so they just kind of petered out and conceded. So that was a surprise matchup, but a good win. Round 4 was against Sanguine Aggro, which is potentially very scary for this deck, as I have not the best early game removal, but I just happened to see everything. Double Candelabra, a few Vengeful Radiances, the Moriais. When I was at 10 defense and they had 1 follower, I had the perfect setup for Zerganea, so I swung back to 15. Game ended after I had Godsworn Alexia with them for the first time. I was basically back up to 20. They were at 1, so they were basically dead in the water because a lot of their cards, when they play them, will just deal them a damage. So that was the Sanguine matchup. Round 5 was against Justice for Gingerbread, which is who we also played in Grand Finals. I had a kind of bad curve into them, but I did claw my way back into the game and dragged it out for probably like 13 turns. But eventually they found their Rose Queen burst and got me down. Top 8, I played against Dirtrin. This matchup entirely hinges on whether or not I'm able to set up 2 back-to-back fully charged Alexials by the time they get to their endgame, so the game was pretty neck and neck. I was able to set up my amulets and clear their followers, and they were unable to really burn me too much with their Carrot Wind spells because I had no followers. And by the time they got to their endgame with their Ancient Alchemist, and they were dealing 9 damage to me each turn, I was healing back 8 of it and doing 8 back to them each turn, so 2 Alexios got us there. Top 4 was the Nephthys matchup. They did manage to snipe 1 Alexio from my hand with the discard effects, but unfortunately for them, if you snipe Zerganea, that only helps me. So in the early game, I delayed their Necker Charge with the Psychic Maiden, Double Banish, in addition to some Eidolon of Madnesses. And we got to a point where I had Zerganea in my EX area. I was healing off of my Serenade and Heinz, and they were very close to deck out, so we were able to secure that game with a concede. And Grand Finals, I was against the Vampire deck again, and this one, I thought I had a good chance of winning. I had a better curve. I was able to deal with some early threats, but unfortunately they had a good amount of their 2-cost Ravens that kept burning me for 2 a bunch of times and recurring them from the graveyard, so they got me down to 13 by the time they were at 8 play points, and they proceeded to use their Rose Queen for 6, evolve it for 1 plus extra play point, show me their hand of 7 2-cost cards, and proceed to kill me from 13 play points, or from 13 life. So that was a blowout, but very well played by my opponent. And that was about it.
Wow. You seem like you had the mountain to climb out of everybody else. You literally, it sounded like you literally played against like everybody's like off meta deck and also the meta decks, like just a whole just wide range of decks that you played against. So, wow.
Yeah, it was definitely a maximum effort kind of day, but I think we did as okay as we could have with the deck as it was.
Yeah, it does
Oh,
seem
yeah,
like
for sure.
after you explained your matchups, it does seem like AJ took the sword, I was taking the rune, and then you were taking like whatever other people were trying to run at the time.
Definitely.
Right, the
It feels
surprise threats.
Yeah, it feels like as a aside, I think it's always so interesting, like thinking about the psychology of like which players in which position, because you can fall down a rabbit hole with that of just kind of like what are other people gonna put in their position 2, position 1, etc. Of like, okay, who are we trying to have be the cannon fodder into the top of meta, and who do we want to just like try to get a sweep against a like 0-100 matchup like I fell into today.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like the placements of the seats, like I feel like everybody has like the A spot is like the best deck, and like the B spot's like the kind of good like second tier deck, and then C is like just out of nowhere. You can get anything. But
It's the
it's
wild
like
card, definitely.
yeah, and it's like you could literally be playing against any combination of that because there's so many different teams that you don't even know how they think. So I don't know.
Hmm.
It's I think it's so mainstream that that's how it happens. But when you
Mm.
run up into that team of where they put like the random deck in seat A, you're just like not expecting it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. And it was interesting how I feel like bats would wind up on either side of me, but it never landed in the middle. So I feel thanks to some games from Donut, I feel like I know what to do in that matchup, but that testing just never came up just through sheer RNG of where the seats landed.
It is kind of funny now that you mentioned that. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Well, I think that was a great, pretty much explanation of the event. I'm glad you guys took second and had fun also as a team. For our YouTube people, again, I'm going to put their YouTubes up on the screen here and in the description, so please do give them a follow and a like. Um, and yeah, look forward to some more videos, and I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate the team here for coming out and explaining their deck profiles and giving us their experience. Do you guys have any last words for me and or the world?
I guess if I just want to mention that my channel just mainly does Abysscraft videos, so if you're trying to get into that, just check out that channel. But otherwise, no, not really.
Allie?
Yeah, I'll just say thank you so much for having us on. And Gingerbread House did nothing wrong. You can't tell me otherwise. Gingerbread House, justice for gingerbread. That's all I'm gonna say.
Nice.
Yeah. Thanks for having us on, and if Sidegame/Bushiroad is listening, keep those good amulet effects coming.
And if they're listening, please
Love to see
don't,
it.
because I can't take them.
Well, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoy, and we'll see you in the next video.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.